Hi grade 8s, welcome back to another one of our video lessons. So today we're going to continue on page 121. We're going to look at identifying quadrilaterals using both sides and angles. Okay guys, remember that in our previous lessons we looked at identifying quadrilaterals using sides and then using angles. Now we're going to combine the two together and we're basically going to have various points for how to identify different quadrilaterals. Okay, I'm going to run through these in the blue block on page 121 and we'll get into some special parallelograms and then exercise 11.5 and then finally we're going to get to congruence and similarity of triangles. Okay, right, so let's start. A quadrilateral can be identified as a parallelogram, okay, if both pairs of opposite angles are equal, both pairs of opposite sides are equal, both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, one pair of opposite sides is equal and parallel. A quadrilateral can be identified as a rhombus if it has four equal sides, both pairs of opposite angles are equal and a pair of adjacent sides is equal, both pairs of opposite sides are parallel and a pair of adjacent sides is equal, one pair of opposite sides is equal and parallel and a pair of adjacent sides is equal. Okay guys, so what this means is that the particular shape doesn't have to meet all of these criteria. I don't have to give you the information on all of these points for you to identify it as a parallelogram. It's already enough if one of these points match up, then you can say that it is this particular shape, parallelogram or a rhombus. And also guys, I'm just reading through these one by one, but obviously we've gone through all of these before. So as you are going through these, what I want you to do is look at the particular shape and see what we are talking about, which sides are equal and which sides are parallel. Okay. Right, let's continue. So a quadrilateral can be identified as a rectangle if it has four right angles, both pairs of opposite sides are parallel and it has a right angle, both pairs of opposite sides are equal and it has a right angle, one pair of opposite sides is equal and parallel and has a right angle. A quadrilateral can be identified as a square if it has four equal sides and a right angle, it has four right angles and a pair of adjacent sides equal. Okay, do you see the similarity between the rectangle and a square? The only difference is that the sides need to be all equal or adjacent sides need to be equal. Okay. Right, a quadrilateral can be identified as a kite if it has two pairs of adjacent sides equal. Okay, so remember, two pairs of adjacent sides equal. And a quadrilateral can be identified as a trapezium if it has only one pair of opposite sides parallel, it has one pair of supplementary co-interior angles. Okay guys, that's a really important one. I'm just going to get a pen quickly. Okay, so this is a great way to test if this is a trapezium, right? Because remember, in a trapezium, we have one pair of opposite sides parallel. Okay, so we could have a trapezium like that, and we have this is parallel to that. Well, remember from parallel lines and co-interior angles, if we have two parallel lines, then this angle plus this angle is going to add up to 180. Similarly, this angle plus this angle is going to add up to 180 as well. Okay, so that's how you can identify parallel lines. If the two co-interior angles add up to 180, you know the lines are parallel. And if the lines are parallel, it could be a trapezium, it could be a well, yeah, if two lines are parallel, it could be a parallelogram or a trapezium, depending on more information given. Okay. Alright guys, so that's now the summary of all of our different quadrilaterals that we can have and how we're going to identify them. Right, let's now continue. We have some special parallelograms. So one special type of parallelogram is a rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram with a pair of adjacent sides equal. Every rhombus is a parallelogram, but a parallelogram is only a rhombus if it has a pair of adjacent sides equal. Okay, so what they're really trying to say is that if I have a parallelogram that looks something like that, okay, remember parallel sides, and they are equal. Okay, if I have a parallelogram, this parallelogram is not necessarily a rhombus, because remember, in a rhombus, adjacent sides need to be the same. But if I have a rhombus, I can also classify that rhombus as a parallelogram, because opposite sides are parallel and they are also equal. Okay, so we can give every rhombus a classification of a parallelogram, but we can't give every parallelogram a classification of a rhombus because the sides need to be the same. All right, another special type of parallelogram is a square. A square is a rhombus with a right angle. Every square is a rhombus, but a rhombus is only a square if it has a right angle. Okay, so do you see what's going on? So basically a square can be classified as a parallelogram because it fits that criteria, and a rhombus can also be classified as a square if it has 90-degree angle. Okay, right, let's continue. Another special type of parallelogram is a rectangle. A rectangle is a parallelogram with a right angle. Every rectangle is a parallelogram, but a parallelogram is only a rectangle if it has a right angle. Okay, guys, so it's pretty intuitive because remember when we were looking at these shapes, I said pair up your square and rhombus together, your rectangle and parallelogram together, because they're almost the same shape. The only difference is that they are slanted to the side. Okay, so if we remove that slant, a rhombus becomes a square and a parallelogram becomes a rectangle. Okay. All right, guys, let's now continue. Next page. So we have a worked example. So when you classify a quadrilateral, you must consider everything that you know about its sides and angles. Okay, so like we said that as if I give you a square, it's not enough for you to say it's a parallelogram. Okay, if it's a square, you have to classify it further. Okay, so that's why you need to take all the information about the quad and use it in order to classify it. Okay, guys, let's look at the worked example on page 122. Use the information given to each of these sketches to use the information given on each of these sketches to classify the quadrilaterals. Give reasons for your answers. The sketches are not to scale. Okay, remember again, nothing is going to be drawn according to scale, so please don't try to figure it out from what it looks like. Okay, we need to use the arrows that we have. Okay, so let's look at the first shape that we have. Okay, so guys, I don't know if you can see red on the board very well. I'm just going to pause the video. Okay, guys, I've got a different marker. Let's see if this will work. All right, so the first shape that we have looks like this. A, B, C, D. Okay, can you see that? Yes. All right, cool. So the information that they give us is that this side is equal to that side, and this side is parallel to that side. Okay, this side is parallel to this side. Okay, so that's what we have. All right, so let's try to figure out what we are looking at. So firstly, what you notice, or what you should notice, is that both of the opposite sides are parallel to each other. Okay, so both opposite sides are parallel to each other, so we can definitely conclude it's a parallelogram. Okay, because both opposite sides are parallel, it's a parallelogram. Now what we can do is we can classify things further and try to figure out what kind of parallelogram it is. Or maybe it's a special kind of parallelogram that we looked at on the previous page. Okay, so let's try to classify it further. Well, what else are we given? The only other information we are given is that this side is equal to that side. Okay, so two adjacent sides are equal and it's a parallelogram. Okay, well, what can we have that is parallel? Okay, so we can have a rhombus that looks like that. Remember, that side equals to that side, and this is parallel to that, that's parallel to that. Okay, so that's pretty much what we have over here. We can either have a rhombus or a square. Now, for the square, we don't have enough info to conclude that this rhombus is a square as well, because we don't have a 90-degree anywhere. All we are told is that opposite sides are parallel and one pair of adjacent sides is equal. So based on the information that I have here, I can definitely conclude that it is a parallelogram. That parallelogram is definitely a rhombus. And that rhombus, well, I can't conclude it's a square, so I'm going to stop there. If I had a 90-degree angle, I would conclude that yes, this rhombus is actually a square. Okay, but for now, we're going to conclude that ABCD is a rhombus. Okay, remember, when we classify these shapes, you need to explain to me why you're saying to me it's a rhombus. And the reason for that is that while both opposite sides are parallel, so you state that, okay, you say AD is parallel to BC and AB is parallel to DC, and also that ABA equals to AD, or one pair of adjacent sides is equal. You'll see from the classification on the previous page, you'll find that this is a rhombus. Okay, let's look at the next diagram. Okay, this is what we have. So E, F, G, H. Okay, and they say this is a 90-degree angle there. This side equals to that side, and this side equals to that side. Right, so let's think about this. What do we have? Well, first of all, we have a 90-degree angle. Okay, so we also have that this side equals that side and this side equals that side. Okay, well, both of the opposite sides are equal. Okay, so what could we possibly have? We could have a rectangle, we could have a parallelogram, we could have a rhombus or a square. Okay, because they gave us this 90-degree angle over there, it means that it has to be either a rectangle or a square, because nothing else will have a 90-degree angle in it. Okay, so it's either a rectangle or a square where both of these match up, opposite sides are equal. Can we conclude that this is a square? The answer is no. We cannot conclude it's a square because we weren't told that all the sides are equal. Okay, they only said that this side equals that side and this side equals that side. Okay, so from the information given, we cannot say that all the sides are equal over here. But we can definitely say that this is a parallelogram, and it's a special type of parallelogram, which is a rectangle, because of the 90-degree angle and opposite sides being equal. Okay. If they told us that this side equals to this side as well, we could conclude that this thing is a square rather than a rectangle. All right, cool. Now let's look at the next one. Okay, so the next shape we have is this, PQRS. What they've given us is that all the sides are equal and there's a 90-degree angle involved. Okay, well, that is pretty easy because it's very similar to the previous one we did. Okay, where the opposite sides were the same and we had a 90-degree angle. And remember, we even said that we can't conclude that the previous one was a square because the sides weren't all the same. Well, what are they giving us here? They've given us that all the sides are the same. That means that it could either be two different shapes, either a square or a rhombus, because only on those two shapes that we have all the sides are the same. Okay. But because we have a right angle over here, it means that this rhombus is a square because of the right angle. Okay, so we're going to conclude that this shape PQRS is a square. Why? Because all the sides are equal and we have a 90-degree angle. Okay, all right, guys, so that is how we're going to go about to classify these different shapes, okay? So if you look in the answers, it says PQRS is a square because it is a rhombus with a right angle. Yes. Right, let's look at exercise 11.5. Number 1, use the information given on sketches 1A, 1B, and 1C on the left to classify the quadrilaterals. Give reasons for your answers. The sketches are not drawn according to scale. Okay, guys, I want you to work through these and try to figure out what shape it is. Remember, you need to justify your answer. You can't just tell me that this thing is a rectangle, the end. I won't give you any marks for that. You need to explain why exactly it is a rectangle or whatever picture you think it is, figure. Right, number 2, complete each of these statements. So these are the statements from the previous page. You need to go through them and figure out what shape they are describing, or what shape is formed by meeting the following criteria. Okay, again, run through those and do them for homework. Okay, guys, so for this lesson, what I want you to do is go through page 121, which is that blue section, which summarizes the angles and sides of quadrilaterals, and then do exercise 11.5 on page 122. And in the next lesson, we are going to start with congruency and similarity conditions for different shapes. Okay, cool, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.